I think my journey into my business was so brand heavy that the product wasn't up to scratch compared to the brand.
So interesting.
And so I wonder if that's more immoral than getting kickbacks as an interior designer.
But I know what you mean, though.
Because, and it's not, and the intention was not bad. The
Yeah.
intention was one of aspiration and love
you
and
wanna
passion.
work and
But as with any unicorn-blooded young man, you go for too much too quickly. And so my journey in the past year has been focused on product, on just going back to the basics in terms of, well, we are a business, we offer a service to a customer, and we owe it to the customer to deliver as much value as possible to that customer. And therefore, we should center our activity and our decisions on how to deliver most value to the customer.
Yeah.
Welcome back. This is our first podcast in the new factory studio. So we moved, for the viewers, I guess, we moved from Richmond to now the factory in CLayton. We moved into this factory mid-late last year, and we're doing podcasts out of here now. So it's an elite situation with an elite guest, Mr. Nick Acquroff of Slater and Acquroff and Ensemble. Please, perhaps a short introduction about who you are and what your roles are. And
I'm in a very, very fortunate position of having inherited a fourth generation 102-year-old company from my ancestors. So there's a lot of credit goes to my great-grandfather and then my grandfather and my father and my mum. And we are, S&A Stairs is Australia's largest staircase manufacturer. So we have about 200 staff. We are all over the country. We're still family owned. There's two families that own it. And we're one of those sort of archetypal Australian family businesses where just about everyone that works there is a family member of someone else that works there, and there's aunties and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters and mums that work there. But we are quite a remarkable business in the way that we combine very, very complex machining, as you've seen, Charley, with very old craft skills. And then Ensemble is S&A's baby brother, which was formed about 2 years ago now. And we're Modular Joinery product. So we make, we have standard set size modules, and people can sort of plug and play any doors they want into our modules. And that's it. That's about it so far.
I guess on the topic of Ensemble, what made you want to tackle that sort of modular furniture market? It, at a glance and with respect, it seems like almost like a really saturated market to some extent, but maybe I'm looking at it wrong.
No. I think you're looking. Well, we got in there a really weird way. And it's quite fascinating. We have a lot of 5-axis CNC machinery, so pretty crazy machines. I'm sure people, if you're listening to this podcast, probably know what it is. But it allows us to sort of program in a 3D space. So to reductive process, you have a block of wood, you program what gets taken out of the block of wood, and we use them a hell of a lot in making stairs, especially curved handrails and pitched handrails. Long story short, my older brother created a timber join that we used for a click-together stair system that we got asked to make for a company in Japan called, I won't mention their name, but we and then we went down the path creating this really amazing timber join, and then realised it would be a great join for a perpendicular shelf. At that time, I came in as the youngest brother in the fourth generation, and I thought we should make a shelving system out of this join. And the main constraint of that were that we cut into the substrate of the panel. So we had a backboard, and we cut this pretty complex groove into the panel, and then clicked the shelving in. And then we just extrapolated that out using all the standard sizes. So then we used just Polytech. Started with Polytech at 24 by 12. That became a module. And then we built sideboards, bookshelves, desks, bed heads, all of that one module.
Right. It's interesting to hear that it came off that joint. You showed me that joint. So I had the great honor of touring the S&A factory.
That's right.
And I guess for the viewers who aren't in the woodworking industry, a 5-axis CNC is orders of magnitude more complex and I guess just more complex than a 3-axis router. So like your average cabinet maker's sort of CNC.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a printer, a normal printer versus a 3D printer. So like, this is a good example. Like a 3-axis CNC, which every cabinet maker has, you can just cut on you can put it on a bed and you can cut it around. With a 5-axis, it brings the dimension up here. So you can cut that way and that way, but you can also bring the head around and cut on all these axes. So you can essentially take a block of wood and make it into a sphere with the head of that machine. And then we have a whole bunch of detailers and programmers at stairs. And all they do is do that. So it takes, it's stuff that, like a curved timber handrail, we just laminate up huge blocks of timber, and we just carve curved shapes into them, which we used to do by hand. That took us 15 years or whatever.
Yeah. But, as with anything, just like 3D printing, it's not that straightforward. It's not just you put it on there and you get whatever you want. There's a lot of thinking that in the design. There's a lot of, tools can still only move certain ways, and you still have to obey and be within the constraints of physics. And it's a highly, highly technical skill.
Well, my dad was a bit of a rogue. So kind of S&A, going back to S&A stairs, which this is all built on, is Dad, my old man and his partner Rob he's a bit of a rogue and sort of bought the first BSE 5-axis CNC machine in Australia. And I think he went over and had one too many wines with the sales guy over.
Is that the story where he brought back fake Jordans for you?
Fake. Yes, he did. He bought home soccer kits and fake everything. But he brought it back, but we didn't know what the hell to do with it. So we were like, it sat there doing 3-axis stuff for 5 years. And then we got this programmer called Lee LeQuinn, who's an absolute genius. He's been with us for 30 years, ever since then. And then he figured out the 3D world. So it's kind of like any machine. We actually use it in ways that BSE didn't even realise that it would be used for, because they just give you this framework and then you connect it with people who are really good at programming stuff, and they figure out what its capability are. And if you have someone who's an absolute freak like he is, we've just taken every manual process that we had and found a way to program it, pretty much, over the space of 25 years.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can we zoom out a bit and understand what your background is and sort of what your journey's been?
Yeah, well, it would probably tell you a lot about Ensemble, because I'm not from a joinery background or a stairs background. I'm from an advertising background. So I studied journalism, was a writer, worked at Jardin for a long time as their writer and doing creative. So I worked in their marketing team not as a full-timer, but, you know, if they had magazines or words to write or products to describe, I was the one that wrote the products. And when I was at Jardin, I was like, you know, when you're a little kid and you're a bit precocious and you think that what you've been given or what you have opportunity for, you don't think it's that cool. And I was a bit like that with stairs. I didn't realize that there was this whole amazing business there that I could work in. I didn't think that I liked it, that I wanted to do something else. And then working at Jardin, I was like, oh my God, like making furniture is the coolest thing in the world, and especially local Australian furniture. So, from there, I just had that idea to go in and do something using the same machinery and people that Stairs had, you know, completely new area, and Ensemble was born.
Mm. So in advertising, so you were, would you say your expertise was sort of in that in the copywriting? And
it was like a creative. So, I'm good with like brand, like our S&A Stairs brand. I do all I'm the brand director or whatever, and creative director, and figure out what things look like and how they're photographed and how the brand speaks and what the logo is and how we print things and what our website is and all that sort of stuff. And then I'm kind of that similar role for Ensemble, but also probably together with Tom, who's one of our early designers, pretty heavily into product design. But having no joinery experience definitely came with a lot of issues early on. I did a lot of dumb shit to get to where we are now, that's for sure.
What do you think that part of the young man's that defiance, or that not wanting to be a part of the family business? Like, what do you think that is? Do you think that's
Don't you reckon you just fuck it? Sorry, can I say it?
Yeah,
of
course.
One of the don't you reckon we did this at the start of Ensemble too? I reckon when you start a new idea, you think there's all these standards set. Like, let's take a sheet size in cabinetry, and you'd take a 24 by 12 or a 36 by 18 sheet, and they're the standard. And then those standards work all the way. Like, that's a commoditized standard for a reason, and it works through every part of the supply chain. And it was kind of I'll tie this back, but it was a precocious thing, because I was like, and we did it at the start with Ensemble, we were like, we're not going to use the standards, we're going to create a new standard. And then you realize that you're just fighting against something that is, you're fighting against something that's happened for a reason.
Mm.
And for me, it was, I didn't understand how cool it was, basically. I was like, I was too much of a little dum-dum to realise how amazing it was that every one of my ancestors had worked their absolute arse off their entire life to create something amazing. Mm. And I thought that I could do my own thing that was better. And not, I didn't outly say that, but you realise how lucky you are to have what you've been given by your ancestors if you're in a situation like me where it's a family business.
But why do you think in culture there is that shame with receiving help from the previous generation, for example?
I don't know, right? It's weird because
there's literal shame. Like there is shame, and conversely there is honor in making it yourself, right?
100%.
So maybe it's the rightful honor of making something great. That I guess conversely there is shame with being given something, but I'm not sure.
No, you're right.
What is that?
Well, I look at you and I'm like, you have a much smaller shop than we do, but you walk in, you're like, how freaking cool is this that you're completely self-made? And I actually don't know the.
Well, my father has a cabinet making and a stone business.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm interrupting you, but I went into building, and I also didn't want to do cabinet making or stone because I thought it was a bit lowly or a bit, like it was just like that fucked up kind of weird, insecure kind of thinking.
Yeah,
It's a weird. It's like thinking about it now, it's a bit weird. Obviously, my father doesn't operate on the scale of sort of the amazing um, uh, setup that your family has created, but I could certainly relate to what you're saying. Yeah,
it's interesting, hey. And then, and that was the realization for me. I went from you think that you think you're this spoiled brat, and then you want to pave your own way. And then you realize that you have a duty to actually carry on what's been given. Like that's my two older brothers are the directors at S&A Stairs, and I'm the director at Ensemble. Stairs is 50 times the size of Ensemble. And they work in stress and have a duty to the people and that company that's unbelievable. And the older we get, the stronger our sense of duty gets. Whereas I don't think when you're young you do.
Where do you think those values stem from, and then how do they mature as you mature? Did mum and dad, or did granddad, or did what were?
It's just
what were those cues?
It's kind of interesting, I reckon, because your business gets to a certain size and it becomes an organism. I reckon, which is interesting because you would have it. I have it in my ensemble team, which some might have 10 people in it, and there's a little culture breeding away there. But it's interesting that for a company with Stairs with a few hundred people, there's a very, very strong culture that's sort of embedded, and a very, very traditional culture that's embedded with a company that old. And I actually reckon a lot of it is from football clubs and a lot of it's from church. So my family's not religious, and good luck to you if you are, but previous generations of our business, a lot of people were from the local church. We were in Mount Waverley for a while, we were in Cheltenham for a while, we were in Moorabbin.
I'm a Mount Waverley kid. It makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And it would be like it would be people at the local church, speaking to people at the local church, coming down to work, or Knox Footy Club, like Joey Aiello, who's like absolute king of our business, and his kids, Sarah and Stevie, work there. And Joey is the president of Knox Footy Club, and we've got like half our factory staff from Knox Footy Club. So you sort of like it's got this culture of its own, and it's remarkable because the product, which I can take pretty much no credit for, is just off its head. Like the standards are remarkable.
I heard this very interesting statistic. Third hand. It's probably a third hand. I don't know how accurate it is, but in Japan, the number of companies over 100 years old is there's 50,000 companies over 100 years old, and to think about that is just absolutely insane. 50,000 companies over 100 years old.
Have you ever listened to what's that podcast? It's called Acquired, and they do the one on Nintendo. And it's because you in Japan it was your duty to take over the family business if you were the eldest son, and you take it over by yourself. And there was this really amazing allegory about Nintendo, and they'd taken over about 60 years ago. The son that invented the Nintendo and stuff, he got in when he was 21 because his dad died, and he sacked every single staff member and just started again. But it's interesting, over there they work. It's like you pass it down proudly through the generations.
Yeah.
Here it's like if you're not self-made, you're a little rich boy, or you're a little spoilt brat.
Yeah, that culture. I mean, I guess we'll touch on that a bit. I find it so I find it so weird, and I find it really not conducive to building people up.
Hmm.
Um, it's an interesting. What do they call it? Tall poppy
Tall
syndrome or whatever.
poppy,
Yeah.
totally.
Does that you've traveled around the world? Is that? Does that exist in other cultures or not so much?
Well, it's definitely a thing here, but I reckon I just think the thing about business that I've learned, and Ensemble's had a bumpy ride. It's started in COVID, like it's not been easy, and it's by no means the greatest business in the world yet or at the moment. Um, and I reckon you like if you're just going to be a lazy fuckwit for the rest of your life, your business is just going to go terribly.
Mm.
And so that tall poppy syndrome doesn't really check out, because if you're going to be if let's say we're the fourth generation in our family business, and we in our period of the next whatever 20, 30 years, if we're lazy, then the business will die. And if we don't fulfill our duty and responsibility to it and the people that work for it, will die. So I reckon it's a bit of a misnomer, because the sort of people who have intergenerational wealth through shares and shit, they can kind of do nothing and earn interest on shares. Other people, you gotta become part of the organism and make it successful.
When I toured the factory, you said that the average tenure there was, if I remember correctly, 14 or 15 years.
It's 12 or something, 13.
That is remarkably long for any company, really.
No, yeah.
What's the story behind that number? Why is churn so low? Why do people not leave? Why do people stay?
It's super interesting. I've thought about it heaps.
Obviously, back in the day, there's the community, there's the church, there's the footy club, there's that. But so many of those things are being lost
I know,
these days
right?
as well. So what do you think forms that lifeblood of the organism at SNA Stairs?
It's kind of interesting, because being it's not a comfortable position for me to be the spokesperson of what that culture is either, because I don't exist outside of it. I exist within inside of it, but I wouldn't say that I should. Anyway, caveats aside.
You're not defining it, you're just giving your take.
Yeah, caveats aside. There's a lot of people. I think people see it as their life's work, and being separated enough from the product that it's a very unique company, because the product, like the staircases that are made by SNA, it's a dying art form, so it's a very specialized skill, harder and harder to get new people. And everyone in there is an absolute boffin about it. So they love the technical side of it, and they love the craft. And you can't just pick up and go get another job at a similar industry. It's not like you can, but you don't. Yeah, so I think there's community one side, there's the pride in the work that they're doing, and just the interest, like the engagement. And then probably it's not that hard to transfer, not that easy to transfer your skills across. Which is probably not the right marketing angle to take for me, but it's probably true. So I think it's a combo of those things.
And so if do you guys, so from a brand perspective, do you guys think a lot about what that vision for the next 100 years looks like, what those values are, how those values may or may not be changing, and just how you're thinking about all that stuff from a brand perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I'd say there's like a hell of a lot of gatekeepers of the brand. There's like my eldest brother, Tom, is our managing director. He's worked there for 25 years and he's 40. He was a bit of a pill at school. He's an absolute genius now. And he just knows the DNA of the brand. And if he sees something out of place, he finds it abhorrent, you know. There's another guy, Rob Beard, who's the other family that own it with the Acquroffs. It's Beards. Rob has worked at SNA. He's about to retire. But Rob has worked at SNA since he was 16. And he was the next door neighbour of my dad. And Dad worked there since he was 16. And when you've worked there for that long, it's like it's so similar to like, why are Collingwood why are they always better than Melbourne? Like, why is St Kilda always shit?
I'm looking at you blind because I know nothing about AFL.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, what do you know? You know, like, or it's like in football, like Liverpool Football Club in the English Premier League, who I go for. There's something like about their culture that is remarkable. In that, they seem to have a spirit and a resolve that other clubs don't have, and it's kind of written by their history. Do you have any sense of where that comes from for SNA Stairs? Well, it's history, I reckon, because we're talking about, like, you know, the start of our business starts with two dudes in the Great Depression, like loading up a wheelbarrow and walking it from South Yarra to like Kew, and it's starting with two people, and then there are ancestors everywhere of those two people, you know, 100 years later, and it's quite genuinely like I'm an ancestor of one of those people. There's a whole bunch of people whose parents were there, who are working there now, who that was their dad or their granddad or whatever. And then stories are just passed down, and then you create this amazing fabric through the stories you tell about the business. And that's one thing I'm pretty passionate about, is that history. That's just on the actual personal story history of us. Then you've got these really hardcore principles about how stairs should be made and the quality and the standards of the product that goes out the door, and what you do and you don't do, and what you do and you don't say, and how we do things at SNA, you know, how you service a customer, why we're better than competitors or not better than competitors. You know, these are rules that aren't, they're not, like, a marketing plan can't really redefine that stuff for us. It's kind of just about expressing what it is. And it's got a really amazing continuous improvement sort of culture.
So as you're looking at it from a branding exercise, is there a want to go out there and tell those stories and to share to offer insight into the business and those characters? And
totally, I reckon it's a really fine line though, because I reckon half the time people don't really give a shit. So we kind of, or they think you're being a bit pompous or you're being a bit arrogant or whatever. So sometimes we tell them, and we tell them in a really light touch way. Like every book we've ever made, a piece of collateral or opening to a video, tells a very succinct story about we were a tiny little manufacturer, and through the hard work of 4 generations, we are a national business owned by the same people. And we have very, very high standards. And that's kind of the story that we tell. We don't go into any of into much of the personal history though. It's we kind of leave that behind the walls.
So what's Big Brother Tom's vision for the business?
Well,
he was the bald guy that I met running around,
Tom's
like
the bald guy
with laser focus in his eyes.
Yeah.
Is that him?
Tom's the bald guy, and Joel's the blonde guy who we were together. So Joel's out. Joel. So I got two older brothers. I'm the youngest. Middle one's Joel. Joel's our sales. He's out. They're both directors. Joel's in charge of sales and relationships. Joel's a very, very smart guy, but can just talk the leg off a chair. So Joel is unbelievable at knowing what's happening in the industry, and he's unbelievable at making relationships that get us work, basically. And then over his, last 10 years, we've been able to double or triple the size of S&A through onboarding major builders around the country. First in Vic, now in Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales. So Joel's pretty amazing at going, well, we get your work in Vic, and then we make relationships in our other branches. And then Tom is the operations, does all operations. So both of them, I would say that their main strength that other generations haven't had is that they just collect data. Like, they're crazy about data. It sounds like a real wank, but when you have enough volume and through, like I collect data for Ensemble, but it's just bullshit, because like we do 30 jobs a month or whatever, and it will go from 30 to 50 to 10 to 20. A business at the scale that they're running, S&A, is so interesting because you really feel market trends. Like if the market starts to drop off, you feel it because you have enough volume to feel the 2% drop off because it extrapolates out to the same drop off. Whereas Ensemble, it might drop by 30% because that part of the market's gone or whatever. But we have like such a even spread through the market. We do major builders, we do custom builders, we do architects. We can sort of, it's interesting. So they've just become unbelievable at gathering data. We have Joel and Tom together. Joel particularly has built Asana into our business. We use that as a workflow throughout every part of the business. And they get great data about what are our output levels, what are our order volumes, what's our reschedule rates, which builders, what's the fluctuation in orders between builders, between states, what state is servicing what other state, and because we have different states that provide material components for other states. We have so really complex, and they're amazing at reading that data.
So what's do you have any insights into what the construction industry is doing at the moment, and sort of how you guys view the short midterm?
It's been coming from from an ensemble perspective, it's been pretty. We're interesting though, because we're kind of not a building industry product. We're actually just
a retail brand.
We're a retail brand. So Ensemble's different because we zig when everyone else in the building industry zags, kind of thing. And retail's obviously going to be quiet. Building, I think, the one thing, we've done the stairs for Metricon, Henley, Carlisle, Burbank, all of those for 20 years. Like, you can never underestimate how quickly they pivot and find a way to make sales and make things attractive to customers. And they've also got such huge buckets of work. Like, the main issue they've had is cash flow, because I don't even know if we need to repeat it because it's such a common trope, but it's like, if you start up twice as many homes and they take twice as long, and you need twice as much cash to build them, but it's spread out over a much longer time between you getting any payments. So there's a natural cash flow issue.
So gross profits are down, and that's putting pressure on cash.
Pretty much, longer build times, way more lumpy. Material input cost price rises.
What do you see on in Ensemble? I guess you're retail. You're like almost like retail furniture, almost in that Jardin space. Would you say? Kind of like a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, totally. Well, what we did, we found our little niche, which is good because it took us a little while to find like a product market fit. But our niche is interior designers use us a lot. So half of what we have we're for interior designers who are doing renovations because they don't draw their own joinery. So if you don't draw your own joinery, then you won't use a custom.
So like an interior stylist or like a decorator kind of.
Decorators and stuff like that. And they want something built in, but they don't sort of have the technical capability to design it themselves. So we step in and they can do something super fancy or super colourful or customised looking, but it's all the same carcass. So you're putting gorgeous different doors on the exact same module.
So what you're selling to them is, I guess it's the ability to exercise choice.
That's all it is. Yeah. And the cost, like we allow them to make choices without the prices skyrocketing accordingly. So like you can, because we've done all the programming and the measuring, and because there's no site measure, like we allow you to have heaps of choice without going to a custom joiner. You know, so for an interior designer, they know that every apartment they do, there's a wall space for a TV unit or a wall space or a bookshelf that's going to be between 1,200 and 3 meters long. We have a module, we have a size to suit every one of those alcoves. And then they come in and just choose their colours and away they go. So there's no drawing process. There's no, so we're really customer service focused. We've got a showroom to take them through colours. So we're really about steering them through design choices. And then you can quote it all on the website yourself. Whereas, we're not a new building product where you have a joiner there, because if you've got a cabinet maker, then they can just make Ensemble products.
So it sounds like the niche sounds like somewhere between a furniture store and a custom joinery package.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because the furniture store doesn't have doesn't give you the opportunity to make choices or as many choices, or for customization.
Yeah.
And locally made always feels better than imported goods
and
at a crazy marked up price.
Yes,
that's the feeling.
Well, and I reckon the other way to describe the niche is that there's a competing force, or like there's competing interests between builders and especially in like multi-res and stuff, and the actual customer. So my parents did it. They downsized, moved into an apartment, and it was a fancy apartment-ish. And they'd done the kitchen, they'd done their wardrobes, but then none of the alcoves had any joinery in them at all. So like there were alcoves for all the vents and stuff, but there was no built-in joinery for TV units. There was no additional storage stuff. And I was like, this is quite a good apartment, but you can't buy that. And then the problem that they had is the joiner they were trying to call the joiner to go back. And the joiner's like, I'm not going back to make 2 TV units and a buffet. I have to go and measure and draw that all up and make it custom. So the prices blow out. Or they don't want to do the work. So for us, we just have like a book, and you just go through the 3-step. I have this module. I have this a slim sideboard. I'll have it in shaker profile and I'll paint it bright pink. So it's a really easy process for them. And what we find, and the niche we've found is like, half interior designers, half people that can't get a joiner to go over because it's too low value. I suppose what we're teaching them to do now is install it themselves. That's the next step.
How do you what are retailers who have similar customers? So let's say like your mid-range imported furniture shop.
Yeah.
What are they getting wrong? Because I find when if I'm looking at furniture at a furniture store, I'm not sure I can feel any sense of differentiation in that mid-range. It just seems like a massive slodge of.
Totally. I reckon it's straight, I reckon that Jardin thing, I know, having worked at, a lot with Jardin in the past, and knowing Nick and Renee who own, and Mike who own the business well, what I love about them is that they're just true to their values. They don't think they're awesome at all, they're really humble. But they like good design, and they think that good design should be made. There should be a good design company in Australia, and there should be people making stuff locally, and it should be really good. Whereas I reckon all of those mid-range furniture companies are like, how much shit can we warehouse from?
So do you think
China?
it's a very much a commodity and trend based business?
100%. And the big ones, they're prepared to lose out on trend. It's driven by the block, isn't it?
So it's the task is the success of the business is largely driven by the buying decisions of the company, and then I guess how they market it. But the point I guess I'm making is the marketing all seems quite the same.
And it's really driven by it's digital marketing algorithms, isn't it? There's some really interesting rules. I won't mention the names, that we've done wholesale with some brands, or gotten close with a bunch of big wholesalers. And there's so many funny rules about the way that you can market. We work with a company called Beach Ave to do our digital marketing. He's a great mate of mine. He's a gun. His name's Dave. But he a lot of those big retailers, there's no color allowed. Products are meant to look all the same. And that's what I wanted for Ensemble. It's Dave was give us a bright blue cabinet. No one's going to buy it, but people will look at it and then they'll go to your website. Do something different, not because you'll sell that product, but because then you're a bit different. Whereas, like you said, the block effect channels everyone into, and as a cabinet maker, it's everyone buys a white kitchen. But I don't think that creates any recognizable brands with any differentiation.
So then how do those considerations play into your strategy and your brand strategy for Ensemble, and I guess on a tactical level, how you're marketing the brand?
Our marketing is all done through, we've got two things. One, our first foundation is Modular, which makes things easy to outsource and easy to make. So we want to have an outsourced supply chain. That's our goal. So we control all the design and the design decisions and the color selections, putting a range together, and all the marketing. But we want to be able to have a product that can plug and play into any cabinet maker in the country. That's our kind of idea, build that kind of supply chain. And then marketing, we use interior designers particularly, and influencers.
So you do what influencer brand deals with interior designers?
Yeah, but they're not brand deals. They're not really like we're doing a sideboard for Abby Chatfield at the moment, through her interior designer, and it's just free product, But then we would say, we have this system for you. Like we have this whole, we have a book with all of our modules, all of our doors and profiles, and all of our colors. Use our book to create your favorite product. And then there's all these weird and wonderful and crazy things you can do with that, with those combinations. There's like, 10,000 variables or something. There's 10,000 different products you can create there. So we want people to like express that. But for us, there's no actual discernible difference between what we're making, because you're sending it to a 2-packer and you're changing the paint color, or you're putting a handle on a door, or you're using veneer instead of Laminex. Or
what sort of you're doing? So let's say you're working with influencers, let's say offering free product or some sort of a placement or something. They do some weird, wonderful design, so you get the association with that individual, and you get to see the breadth of the product.
Get to see the breadth of product. And like I always, like my thing with marketing is that you need to have the same audience as them. Like, and not the same audience in terms of like they're a competitor, but they need, if we would want someone to have, 50 to 100,000 followers, and the people that follow them want to buy Australian made expensive modular furniture, and it would be the same thing with a brand collab. Like we're looking into some collaboration ideas where it would be, you get a fabric company and you do a fabric insert of a door, or you do get an artist to paint a door. And it's like the reason that we would do that is so that person's audience sees what we do.
I mean, it adds, I'm not sure if it's the right word, but it adds novelty as well.
Adds novelty. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, there's a company I really like. There's a few companies I really like who do it. I mean, Apple do it well, where things feel customized, but they're not, Nike ID does it really well, where that you can change a panel color of a shoe, but you're not changing the shoe. It's a company called The Dairy that do it with phone cases, and it's just screen printed phone cases, and every single phone case is the same, but there's a different overlay. And that's what I want to do. Like, I want people to be able to. I want to create this framework where you can create a million different products, but it's not hard to manufacture them. That's kind of the idea. And then kind of get more and more eyeballs on it, I suppose.
Have you thought about what that pathway looks like to getting there?
Yeah, we've broken really good ground the last 12 months in setting up like with interior designers. So interior designers are great advocates for us. So one brand I really like is Globe West. I don't know if you know them.
I've heard of them.
So really smart brand because everything's imported. But I don't turn my nose up at that. They buy stuff overseas really cheap. It has a super high retail price. And interior designers get a 50% rebate on every sale. So they get 50% off. And then so they spec Globe West into all of their product, into all of their projects. It looks like an expensive brand. It's actually not. And the interior designer makes 50% on it. So an interior designer goes and says, like, I want that couch. I'll buy it for $1,000, sell it to my customer for $2,000 so that they make money on the furniture. And that's the kind of model we use for our interior design customers as well. They can make
like an affiliate program.
Yeah, it's affiliate. Yeah. They can make money selling our products. And then your interior designers become your sales team, basically.
Do you think there's a fine line between architects and designers getting, to use a dirtier word, getting kickbacks from a supplier and an affiliate program. I guess, do you think there is a fine line there, or do you think let capitalism prevail and just let it go?
Yeah, I don't think, because I think they're doing a lot too, especially with a product like ours. I just think it's like our business. Like I'm sure there's not much goes through your factory or our factory without a markup on it. So it's just kind of the same with us, like, or it's the same with them. I reckon if you're an interior designer and you go to the effort of, you might have a project fee, but if you've got to go to Globe West and pick the colours and get the piece, I think they deserve to put a markup on it. And probably
the argument for it is that they're putting together a solution for their customer, and their customer deems it of sufficient value that they would like to pay for it.
Exactly. And then for us, we don't give them that kickback.
It's an affiliate program.
It's an affiliate program, and but it's priced in. Like our products aren't the cheapest, and it's so we can do things like that. But the goal for us will that be that we can have an army of interior designers that spec us into projects.
And for them, there's the convenience factor whilst being able to exercise their creative flair.
Yeah.
And subsequently then, just bad word, justifying their value to their customer, or providing an excellent solution to their customer.
Yeah.
And it's a product that's easy to order and that's consistent, that has a brand, it's easy for them to advocate for. It's easy for them to spec.
That's what it is.
And easy doesn't mean it's bad. It
is easy. Joinery made easy is our.
You're just adding lubricity to the process.
Yeah, we're just making it simple. Like and for interior designers, we've got customers who are interior designers now who are like our lifeblood, and now their way of ordering is like, give us 2.4 sideboards in. They know our specification process so well that the project gets done in one email. So it's super easy, and there's no site. We don't go to site, we don't measure, we don't do anything. So they find it really easy to just churn out.
And I think people love to advocate for something that they're a fan of.
Yeah, totally.
And people love to be a part of a tribe, and people love to be part of the church or the soccer team, the footy team, like we were speaking of before. And
Australian-made stuff, particularly, hey. And I advocate for stuff made in Australia, but I don't really. I'm not irked by stuff that isn't. Like, I don't. If you want to make a furniture business and buy everything from Taiwan or China or whatever, good luck to you. But I reckon there's definitely an increasing cachet on products in Australia. Hey,
I think just let the market decide.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just let the market decide. I don't think there's any need to sort of, I guess, gatekeep the industry and say like,
or take any moral high ground. It's just like, we want to make beautiful local products.
So what is your take on Australian manufacturing? I guess like,
it's not easy. You got to pay people a lot and be expensive, don't you? I guess cabinetry's a bit different because it's it's sort of custom enough. Stairs are a little bit like that. Like there's not a heap of risk in an overseas supplier coming in and trashing the sale price.
Well, I guess there's the lead time. There's so much expertise in the site measure of a complex stair.
Exactly.
And then translating that site measure into a design. I guess cabinet makers would say the same, but cabinets are a little more easier to measure.
Yes.
And certainly for large apartment projects.
Maybe, but can you trust? Like a lot of barriers there. Do you reckon people are getting
some of the stuff coming out of China is really good, man?
But that's across the board, like Apple's out of China.
Yeah, some of the cabinets out of China are really good.
I'm sure they are
for a fifth of the cost of goods of making it here.
Yeah. Well, and the machinery is probably better than just made on. The materials are probably just
It's an interesting conversation because essentially by saying by saying to the average consumer purchasing an average product, hey, buy Australian made, you're asking them to do this 80-20 thing where they're paying a lot more for not a whole lot more value in a lot of scenarios.
Oh,
at the high end, I think it's not the case.
Yeah.
But I think for your average customer, for your average consumer in the mid-range of the market.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, cost is everything. But that's why I reckon it's so important. Like, brand is so important.
Well, brand is part of the value proposition.
Exactly. And I reckon like for Ensemble, like offering that choice selection is another huge part of it, because you can't offer, like, you can't be cheaper. So it's not a part of the value prop. It's like,
no one wants the attainable.
No. Yeah. Well, and you just got to, I originally thought that we were going to make this really, like, I originally thought that if you make something modular, it's because it's way cheaper. And then I realized that it was because it's easier. Easy and predominantly it's easier to order for the customer, and it's easier to manufacture for the maker.
Is there a line between having too much choice and not enough?
Fucking oath there is. And we're still finding it. Yeah.
Do people become paralyzed?
Yes. But then you get a great salesperson and they unparalyze them. And we're lucky to have had really good salespeople, Georgia. But yes, and that's why interior designers are good, because they know what they want. So we sell Ensemble's broken down into two customers. Like, we sell pre-styled units online that you can just buy on Shopify, and there's no choice. You can't change the color. You can change the size. That's it. Or you can call us and we'll make whatever the hell you want, but you've got to select it out of all of our finishes. So we find that general public customers just buy set finishes, and then interior designers know their way around it so that they don't get paralyzed by that choice.
So how does Georgia, in a sales appointment or a design appointment, how does she unparalyze someone to make a decision?
I reckon people need to be taught, like...
Does she just advocate for something strongly?
Yeah.
Says, this is what you should go for.
And I reckon people walk themselves into pretty serious disasters. I reckon, like, every second project I walk into, they're like, there's 4 different timber grains in the living room, and then, like, the floors have got heaps of red in them or heaps of yellow in them because they got stained or polished 20 years ago. Then they want to chuck another grain in the mix. So you go, no, you need a colour. And then you've got your, so we break it down like that. We get the size right first. And then we get the finish category right. And if they've got heaps of timber grains, or if they've got a really strong colour timber grain, we just wipe that out and go with 2-pack. So we've got, like, some gateways there that we know how to...
There is a system. There's a system.
We've got a pretty polished system, thanks to our team members, but it's still a work in progress. And one of the main works in progress is that people either get too many quotes or they sit on stuff because they can't decide.
So is your pixel data showing a lot of carts that don't go through? And
yeah, well, we used to have. This is something we're sort of building at the moment for interior designers. We used to have this 3D modeler where you could literally add it. You could select from our whole color range. So you could go, like, I want a timber veneer red bench top that's painted red, and I want Cove 2-pack painted doors. And you could do that all in this modeling system. And now the data, like, no one used it. Well, everyone used it. No one executed a sale with it because it was too much. So now we kind of pre-package stuff online, and that's cheaper. So we go, like, because because these are the things we have in stock or that we buy more of, they're cheaper online. But if you want heaps of choice, like if you know what you're doing, you can come on, speak to a sales rep, and then pay more to have more choice.
What are your personal aspirations of, as you look into the next sort of 5-10 years? Like, what are you thinking about for yourself, and how you're looking to shape that next stage in your life?
Ensemble's a really interesting one because the next product, I know where I want the product to go. Got our supply chain set up. It's just a matter of when we add. It's a matter of, like, I think you can move too quickly before you know where you're going. And I think we've been guilty of that a few times, being like, we're off here and this is our customer. And then you make all these plans about that customer and they're not correct. And then you have to walk it back and try something else. At the moment, we're really product and process focused. So we're just naturally going, like, we want to make additional storage pieces so that you could move in, like our customer is, you moved into your house, you need some extra bits and bobs, but you don't want to go to IKEA. We're a really fancy alternative to IKEA that is also installed if you want it to be. So we want to build that concept out so that you can get all sorts of different storage. This Danish brand called Montana Furniture, who do that really amazingly. Like, you can get all sorts of additional storage pieces and they're beautifully made, and you could put 3 or 4 of them together and you can renovate your house doing it,
So the benefit of that over going to a high-end furniture store is, I guess, the selection and the continuity through pieces.
Yeah, and it's built in, I guess. I guess that's kind of like a joinery. Yeah. There's no real benefit other than it's like it, and if the prices are the same, other than it's a renovation rather than getting a few furniture pieces. Like if you're trying to add value to a reno, this would be the way to do it rather than getting a furniture stylist in, I reckon.
And your focus, and so your midterm focus is on Ensemble.
Yeah.
And building Ensemble.
Yeah. Stairs, my role is like store brand gatekeeper, really. So I work 80% of my time on Ensemble. Because marketing at Stairs it's very B2B. So I just kind of make sure that the brand looks and feels good and we're doing it right.
It's just carefully steering that ship.
Yeah, and we have a great marketing team at Stairs, and so that it's quite good. We've got a few pretty amazing major projects happening, like a website project with some pretty great tech in it. But yeah, I want to make Ensemble like a system that just offers more products. Like we've pulled down some of our products because they weren't working for us manufacturing wise. So we just want to keep refining, adding, and then wait for our time and hopefully burst a little. How about you?
I think and I guess this is why I've sort of disappeared for the past year is I've also been on that journey of really focusing on product.
How has that changed what you're doing?
I think my journey into my business was so brand heavy that the product wasn't up to scratch compared to the brand.
So interesting.
And so
interesting.
I wonder if that's more immoral than getting kickbacks as an interior designer.
But I know what you mean, though.
Because, and the intention was not bad. The intention was one of aspiration and love and passion. But as with any unicorn-blooded young man, you go for too much too quickly.
Mm.
And so my journey in the past year has been focused on product, on just going back to the basics in terms of, well, we are a business, we offer a service to a customer, and we owe it to the customer to deliver as much value as possible to that customer. And therefore, we should center our activity and our decisions on how to deliver most value to the customer.
I love that though, because it's so simple. Like, it's such a writing, like, balancing statement. You know, there's those fundamental truths that pull you out of all your bullshit. And that's one of them, is like what you just said, because
it's just the customer. Like, I say to the guys, and it is an oversimplification, but I say, we're just frying fish in a fish and chip shop. We're just frying fish. It's just the order comes in, we make the fish, and we make the chips and the potato cake, and we pack the order, and we deliver it with a smile, and give them an extra flake once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I think I've found so much joy and so much peace in that, as opposed to just this idea of leaning so heavily into creating brand and story and allure
and a flywheel and growing for the sake of growing. And I've had something similar for Ensemble, because the market's quietened down as well. We've been able to, like, focus on product again, instead of just being focused on growth. And then when you start focusing on product again, you're like, who cares what growth is? Like, just make a good margin on every product, and grow organically. You know, like, you get obsessed with scaling stuff, or I do. But
it's like a lazy metric.
It is. And it's convoluted. Like, it doesn't really help anyone, I don't reckon. Well, it can, but you're better off scaling as a byproduct of making something good and having and offering something good value to your customer.
Yeah, just value to the customer. You know, I think that's really, and I think that is my continued focus. And you know, I'm in the more, you know, I'm in a very fortunate position that I can focus more time now on, say, doing the podcast. But I think the focus for us is still just, how do we deliver a great product to the customer? And I think it's a real cheat code, because we live in a country where customers can't get a fucking quote for their concrete driveway or their cabinets or whatever. It's like, or their sideboard.
Totally.
You can't get a quote for someone to do that job.
Nah.
People aren't motivated. Oh, that's a bit spicy. People aren't motivated to do the work. And so the cheat code is just the cheat code. The cheat code is just like, and if you adopt this attitude, it's fine. That's your choice. But don't be just don't be like, I want work-life balance, so I'm not going to answer the phone at 6. Or I'm not going to whatever. Just respond to your emails quickly and pick up the phone and do that stuff. And I'm not perfect at that. I'm certainly not perfect at that. But just do those things, basic things, and it's like, do those things where in a third world country or in a much more competitive market, like let's say in the US, that's like a given. And then it's like, oh shit, you're in the top 1%. How did that happen?
That's so true. That's so inherent in the good. I think of, like, Ricky and Georgia in my team. It's so just inherently their attitude. Like, they're just mortified if we take 2 days to do a quote.
Well, I mean, and on the flip side, I'm so impressed. Like, I've got a finance broker who I buy all my equipment through. And she just gets back to you.
And it doesn't take much, does it?
Things just happen.
And
and you're just so wildly impressed because you don't get that level of service.
Well, we do. Yeah, I reckon that's been with ensembles like
Get a bit closer to the mic if you could.
So every job that's gone, you notice that if you have a job that goes wrong and you do the right thing as well, that people are just blown away. Like let's say you get a bench top, let's say there's a bench top that's undersized by 2 mil, and you're like, you know what, it is, and we're going to replace it, and we're going to send our installer out, and we're going to take the old one back and do it, which is what we think you just do. And people are amazed by it. They can't believe that you would do that.
Because, and going back to, again, tying that back into the community and culture and whatever, is we don't live in a society where people behave honorably. We don't live in a society where people value their reputation. And a lot of people say they do, but they don't. Because when it comes to $800, they'll throw it all away.
Yeah, exactly. But then you've got
$800 for a grown man to throw away his reputation.
Yeah. But then it's a double-edged sword as well, because you can get too generous.
Yes.
Get absolutely spanked. You know? But it's more an authenticity thing. It's I reckon what you said is perfect. It's answering the phone. It's getting back to people's emails. It's and going that over and above the service.
If you want.
Yeah.
You might think it's a wank. You might think, whatever, I need work-life balance, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have those, you can have that mentality. Or you can have the mentality of just, okay, like whatever, it's just 2 minutes to send an email. Cool, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's so many businesses, I reckon, that are like, I don't reckon that stacks up that well in manufacturing, because like the reason those furniture stores, those mid-range furniture brands, like they offer no customers. Sorry, I've moved the goalpost on you. They offer no customer service, and they put shit on containers and warehouse it, and they're not like their business model is set up to not service people. So I think there's like a really long-term benefit at play if you're more premium.
That's just the model, because they have no margin in there to provide service.
No, exactly.
That's why Sleeping Duck is doing good, because they only have 2 products or however many products.
Yeah. And
they can provide service.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty easy when you have whatever 80 SKUs across 3 products.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy to provide service for. Compared to whatever furniture store with 4,000 items this season.
Yeah, keeping complexity down is hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really hard.
So what do you think, like, what's been on your mind?
In terms of like with the market, or with work, or with
work or market, yeah. Just like what do you, just I guess some closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts are that I think it's going to be, look, we're unbelievably lucky because S&A, we both companies, S&A and Ensemble, we have good buckets of work, so we're kind of busy. The outlook for building in the next 5 years is amazing, I think. But it's just a shame that it's going to be such a weird 6 to 12 months, isn't it? You know, like no one knows what's going to happen. Things are more than likely going to go through a pretty serious downturn. But I take a lot of inspiration from what you said. I think it's a time to get back to really fundamental truths about what you do and use it as a time to develop. And that's what we've done. You know, Stairs is absolutely humming and will be for quite a long time, hopefully. And on Ensemble, we're in a position where we're going into a development phase to make the products better without spending any money we don't need to. You know, that's our thing. It's like, don't spend heaps of money trying to acquire customers if the money doesn't work. You know, like if you're doing heaps of marketing and it's not working that well, if it's not like expanding your business heaps, just call it off and sell enough to make a profit and move on.
Yeah.
And wait till times are better and go again.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Oh, I really just think it's trying to find focus on the simple things, like I was saying, and you were just saying, just finding focus on, you know, if you have that universal, I guess that central universal truth, as you put it, of delivering value to a customer, and just center everything around that. You know, like in my meetings with our guys, it's just the same recurring things. You know, we say, you know, when we make a decision, is this delivering value to the customer? I used to talk about brand a lot. I used to talk about building brand, winning brand. I've reduced that down to just is it delivering value to the customer? Are we looking out for each other? We have this verb called Venn diagramming. You know, are we overlapping in our, I guess, checking of each other's work, or making sure that we are diligent about the really key and important areas of any task we're doing.
Yeah.
And then it's just being honorable.
Yeah.
Those three things, I think, really make you stand out. And, you know, and a lot of what being honorable comes down to is the dollar, and giving more than you take and doing what's right.
Yeah.
And so that's what our focus is. Like, just trying to create like a more of a brotherhood of people who are really committed to something.
Yeah.
And who are honorable. Like, I just can't overstate that.
No, well, and it feels good, doesn't it?
Because
like,
you have to be honorable, and there is such a competitive edge nowadays to be honorable. You know,
totally.
Say something, do it. You know, don't be sleazy. Don't be fucking weird about things.
Yeah.
Just like, just do what you're saying that you're gonna do. And
good thing where someone said their goal was to make, like, the impossible goals to make everyone win at the same time, which I think is really cool. Is like your suppliers win, you win, your customer wins, and you feel good about yourselves if you can do that.
Sounds like the work of a master capitalist.
Yeah, totally.
Maximum efficiency in capital allocation.
Yeah. Thanks heaps for having me, man.
Thank you. It's a real honor to have you here. You're the first guest in the new setup, in the new studio. It's the first show that we've done no headphones on.
Oh, so you're going to go back and find out that it's all cooked?
It's cooked, but it'll taste very good.
And you can compress it.
It'll be delicious.
The vocals are too.
There's no problem. So no, it's a real honor. I didn't thank you and Joel properly for taking me through the factory. That was a real eye-opener for me. I drew a lot of inspiration. I certainly felt the spirit and the soul of SNA and what it is, from the atmosphere, the energy of the people, the SNA family, and it was also very inspiring to see Australian manufacturing at that scale. It's not something that I had seen before. I hadn't walked into a factory of that scale before in our great country. And it was something that was very inspiring for me.
Cool.
I hadn't thanked you guys properly, but I would like to
it's an absolute
extend my gratitude.
And thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for coming, man.
That's it. Let's wrap it up.
Thanks, Ledge. That was great.